This is brutally honest advice for women in their 20s. At the age of 19, I was arrested 6 times. I was 100 pounds overweight. I started my first business when I was 22, and I crossed $100 million net worth at the age of 28. And this is my roadmap of the lessons I learned along the way. The most successful people that I know take their time on earth seriously. How did I get ahead and how did I get to $100 million net worth? How did I lose 100 pounds? How did I find the partner of my dreams? How did I do all these things? Is I didn't fuck off in my 20s. When I was younger, I made the decision to use my 20s as my formative years to create the life of my dreams. So many young women ask me, what do I do with my life? And the first thing I tell them is that you need to take control of your life and the direction that it goes and not wait for a man to do it for you. Because girls who do not take care of themselves turn into dependent and helpless women. And you don't want to be that person. And I'm guessing if you watch my channel, you definitely don't want to be that person. What you want to do is you want to use this time to master yourself, invest in yourself, treat yourself like you are an asset when you are young. It will pay dividends as you grow up. Be the woman that you wish you had all along. The first principle that allowed me to make all this progress in my 20s was understanding one fundamental thing. Fuck your mood, follow the plan. Don't trust your gut, follow the evidence. My whole life, I grew up having people tell me, how do you feel? You should pay attention to your feelings. How's your gut? What's your gut telling you? And here's the thing, is that a lot of the times my gut's telling me to do the fucking opposite of the thing that's gonna advance me in life. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. My gut tells me to do what's comfortable. And so what that means is the cost of the dreams you have for yourself tomorrow is discomfort today. And so that is why my mantra for myself is fuck your mood, follow the plan. What you need to understand is our brains are wired to survive, not to succeed. And same with our emotions and all the thoughts that our brains generate. And so a lot of the times when I was younger, I didn't understand this. And so I thought that if I had a thought, it was a fact. I thought that if I had a feeling, it actually meant something. But what I realized and what allowed me to really propel myself to the next level at a young age was that sometimes the best thing to do was the opposite of what I felt. Because sometimes my brain's trying to keep me safe from the one thing that's gonna help me succeed. Here's the thing, emotions come and go, just like seasons. So if we base permanent decisions on temporary emotions, our lives end up nowhere. Here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with feeling sad, angry, upset, frustrated, disappointed, scared, anxious, stressed. What's bad is if you allow those feelings to dictate your choices, to dictate your actions, and to dictate what you do with your life. There's no reason to fear an emotion if it doesn't have an effect on your behavior. I first learned this when I decided to move to California. So I was 21 and I was coming up at the end of college and hadn't really learned a lot in college. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I remember listening to tapes of Tony Robbins, and he talked about how he had a house on the cliff of Corona del Mar, and living there, he was able to be around all these people that expanded the vision he had of his life. And I remember thinking to myself, I want to live there. Like, that's where I want to be. Like, that's where opportunity is, because the town I was in was small and people were more small-minded and they weren't going big places. And I remember talking to my dad and I said, that's so cool. It would be so cool to go there or something like that. And he said something to the extent of, oh, Layla, like, you know, there's plenty of opportunity here, X, Y, and Z. And then at the end of what he was saying, after he went on this little rant, he said, but you know what? You should probably just do the opposite of what I'm saying, because I've pretty much stuck with what's comfortable, and then I'm not really stoked about where I'm at. And I don't think that he could have known that in that moment, it changed my life forever. Because the first thing that I thought to myself was, fuck it, I'm moving to California. What he was telling me in that moment is he was telling me to make decisions that were best long-term, not just short-term. And staying where I was very comforting in the short term. And it was terrifying, the thought of moving at such a young age by myself to a place where I didn't know anybody, I didn't have much money, I didn't have that many resources at the point in time. But the person I want to be is the person who's able to do that. And that was really the first time I experienced for myself doing what's uncomfortable as hell, but following the plan literally resulted in changing my entire life. Because when I went to California, I got a job that I wouldn't have gotten in Michigan. And then when I got that job, I met people that I would never have met in my hometown. And then when I met those people, it opened up my eyes to what was possible in the world of entrepreneurship. And then that is what allowed me to create a bigger vision for myself, and then find a partner who had a greater vision for himself, and then build the empire that we have today. And it all started with doing something that was really fucking terrifying. And the thing is that if I had followed what my mood said, in the sleepless nights before moving, in the like waking up at 4 a.m. thinking about like, you've got $2,000, how are you moving to California? In pulling up to my apartment and seeing that there was barbed wire fencing around it and realizing I'd gotten an apartment in the ghetto. Like, there were so many points of the journey where I could have said, go home, this is terrifying. But I kept asking myself, is that part of the plan? It's not part of the plan. The plan is that I move here, I get more skills, I get a better network, and I recognize a bigger vision for myself, and I expose myself to opportunities I wouldn't have had before. And so my mood was trying to deter me from the plan, whereas I knew what I needed to do to achieve my goals. This is a mistake that I see women make over and over and over again. I think it's because we get socialized in society to listen to our guts and intuitions. Do you know the difference between your gut and intuition? Because a lot of women say to me, they're like, well, I won't follow my gut, like you're saying, because yes, sometimes it just keeps me stuck, but I will follow my intuition, into which case I say, how do we know the difference between those two things? We can't measure them, we can't see them. It's only a feeling that occurs in our body. And so my argument for women is to stop letting society help us make bad decisions for our lives. Because the amount of women that end up with some deadbeat shithead because, oh, I feel good when I'm around him, who end up with shitty friends who talk shit about them, who end up in a job that goes nowhere, or who end up just marrying a rich man because they were told that's what they should do. All of these decisions are made because somebody decided to stay comfortable. Is that if you want to break out of that, if you want to be the one to alter your family tree, then you need to go against what is comfortable. And that's why I say, fuck your mood, follow the plan. That was the best skill I could have learned at that young age, is that often when I'm scared, it's not that I need to run away from the thing I'm scared of, it's actually I need to lean into it. And so oftentimes it's not about how we feel, it makes us want to run away when in fact we need to keep leaning in. There were so many times in my 20s when I was trying to lose weight, for example, when I was running my company, starting my company for the first time, was on my period and felt terrible. When I was in a fight with somebody and I was in a bad mood, when I got terrible news and I had to get on a meeting. And all of those times were times when I could have run the other way and I could have done what was comfortable. And instead, I just kept reminding myself, who do you want to be? And if this is not part of that plan, then you stick with the plan. You don't let your emotions deter you from it. And I think that a lot of women need to hear this message because we can have all of our emotions. Your emotions are valid, but you can also have those emotions and not let them dictate the course of your life. When you feel poorly and then you act upon feeling poorly, you make yourself feel worse. You know when they say it rains, it pours? That's because one thing happens and then someone allows it to affect their emotions, but then they allow their emotions to dictate the next thing they do. And then you know what happens? Your boyfriend broke up with you, which could have been an isolated incident. But then instead what happened is then you brought that emotion to work. And then suddenly you lose your job. Why'd you lose your job? Well, because my boss is an asshole. Or is it because you allowed your emotions from one area of life to creep in and dictate the other area? And so this saying has been so crucial to my success because, guys, I have no less emotions, nor do I think my emotions are not valid. They're absolutely valid, they exist, but I don't let them run my life. I run my life through the plan that I've built for myself to become the woman I want to be. And that woman knows how to carry her emotions with her without letting them dictate the plan. The second lesson that I learned in my 20s was that you settle for others because you settle for yourself. Most women and most people negotiate the type of partner that they want to have in their life because they negotiate who they want to be in their life. Most people negotiate what type of friends they're going to have because they negotiate what type of friend they're going to be. You have to decide who you need to be surrounded by the type of people who would be attracted to that person. The reality is, if you're complaining about your boyfriend, your husband, your spouse, your friends, your job, you're probably the problem. There's only one common denominator. If you don't like the people you're surrounded by, change the common denominator. This is the way that I looked at things, which was if I want better people in my life, I need to become a better person first. And I think we live in this day and age where we blame people and we talk about how toxic people are. There's nothing more toxic than blaming other people for your lack of something and then keeping them around complaining about them when in reality, it's you who needs to level up. Anytime that I noticed that I wanted different friends, I wanted to date somebody differently, I wanted to have a different job, I just said, how can I be better so that I'm worthy of that thing? So that that thing that I want wants me too. Here's the thing, Right now, you might want those friends, you might want that guy. You're not a want match, because guess what? They don't want you back. And that's the reality. And I wish somebody had told me that, because everyone's like, no, you're amazing the way you are, and except you can be amazing and also have areas to improve. You can be a great person and also not be the best friend and the best girlfriend sometimes. We all have areas to improve. Acceptance doesn't mean dismissal of flaws. And so what we want to do is be able to hold both hand in hand. I accept myself, and if I want these type of quality people in my life, I need to level up. So the first time that I recognized this was I was reading a book. It was actually Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. And I was reflecting on why was my last relationship so shitty? And not so shitty, but what I felt like is I was looking at my past relationships, and what I noticed was I constantly had partners who I felt like almost suppressed me to a degree, meaning they didn't want what was best for me. And I asked myself, why is that? And what kind of partner do I really want? And I remember I went through this exercise in his book where it basically has you write down all the traits of the person that you're looking for, all your non-negotiables, and list out all of those things in that person so you get crystal clear on the type of person you want. And I remember writing all this list, putting all these things down. And I was like, amazing, that's the kind of person I want, like not these people that I've had in my past. But then there's a second step to that, which is now write the list of who you need to be the person that your person is looking for. And I remember I wrote that list and I looked at it and I was like, I have room to improve. I see why I was in those relationships. I see why I had those friends, because despite how I may feel about myself at times, on paper, I think that I need to do these other things to be that person to attract those kind of people. So what did I do about it? I didn't complain. I didn't cry. I didn't say that all men suck. I said I need to be a person worthy of better. And so what I did is I got to work on that fucking list, right? I lost 100 pounds. I started taking care of myself. I started respecting myself. I invested in my skills. I bought online courses for sales and marketing. I took all of the extra time I had and read books, educated myself. And I just tried to become a better version of myself before demanding others treat me better. Because at the end of the day, nobody's going to respect you more than you respect yourselves. And to the degree that you respect yourself and you have standards for yourself, you will attract people who have those for you. But you're not going to be able to demand more of others than you demand of yourself. And I think that that was probably one of the most important things that I could have learned. Was the reason that I settled for all of these people is not because I was settling for people, it's because I was settling for myself. I settled for what was acceptable in terms of my fitness, in terms of my health, in terms of my mindset, in terms of my character, in terms of my integrity, in terms of my confidence. And I had to take a really hard look in the mirror and say, are you yet the woman that you wish to be? Are you yet the woman that you look up to? And the answer was no. And so it's like, cool, let's get to fucking work. And I think a lot of you might be in this situation if you're in your 20s, like, of course you're not that person yet. You need to put in time to acquire the skills. But let's not fool ourselves and say that just because we accept ourselves today doesn't mean that we should improve for tomorrow. That is truly how human evolution works. We are constantly evolving people. And so to try and suppress that and just say that I accept myself no matter what, and all these circumstances, all these people, there's a great power in acceptance, but there's also a limiter if we use it as a scapegoat not to improve ourselves. The third piece of advice I have for women in their 20s is learn how to invest in your skills so you can make money and be free. So what is being free? My definition of being free is being able to act without fear of consequence. So what does that mean? Why is it that in some rooms, you might be in a room of people and you want to go home, right? Because you might feel like I can't slouch down on the couch when people are around. I can't take off my bra when people are around. And so for me, freedom is being able to act as I am without fear that somebody is going to condemn me for it. So to be free from rejection, from fear of failure, from judgment from other people, we have to give ourselves the thing that we seek from others. If we invest in our skills, skills compound faster than money. So invest in your skills now so you can invest your money later. A lot of people ask me, they're like, Layla, should I invest my money? I'm like, yes, invest your money in bettering yourself. You are the fastest compounding asset that you have right now, especially in your 20s. And so you want to triple down on that. Skills always go up in value, can never be stolen, and constantly compound. The first time I realized how valuable it was to acquire skills, to invest in myself, and to learn how to make money was when I made my first sale. Before I made my first sale, I had so much insecurity around money. I felt like it was out of control for me. I felt like I didn't understand how people got rich. I didn't understand how money worked. And there was a lot of limiting beliefs around my ability to have, make, and just have large amounts of money. And it all started with learning sales. And so what I did was I took a job at a gym where I had to learn sales in order to actually have a job there. And that was pretty terrifying. But I knew, I was like, the richest people in the world and the most successful people that I've seen all learned sales. Every single person I looked up to, they'd learned sales. And so I was like, I've got to do it, even though it freaking terrifies me. And so I spent a ton of time studying, researching, watching videos, reading books, doing all these things to learn the skill of sales. And I was no less terrified than probably somebody watching this video. The first time that I even approached somebody to try and make a sale, the lady literally told me, fuck off. I remember I went to the bathroom and I cried. But you know what I did after I cried? I wiped off my fucking tears and I got back out there on the field. What happened was I kept trying, I kept working at it. I went from sucking to sucking less, to being mediocre, to being okay, to being good, to then great, to then the top salesperson where I worked. And the way that I did that was by doubling down on my skills. And you wanna know why I doubled down? Is because I got a taste of what real freedom feels like when you know that you can rely on yourself. The first sale I ever made, it wasn't about the money. It was about the fact that I knew that this was a skill that nobody could take away from me. I didn't need to rely on anybody else for money because I know how to make it for myself now. Now, what does this mean? This means that I don't need anybody in my life, which means I don't need to get somebody into my life because I am lonely, because I am dependent. I want people in my life because they make my life better. So then what I did with all the money I was generating from the sales is I said, how can I use this to get more skills? Because my goal was to learn rather than earn. Skills compound faster than money. And this is what you should focus on when you're in your 20s, which is focus on learning right now, not on earning. So I took all my money and I bought a course. And it was a course that I had seen that people had said they'd be making, you know, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a month using this course to make money online. And so I took all my money and I bought this course. And you wanna know what happened? I bought the wrong course and it was a no refund policy. So I took, at that point, it was from my first 2 weeks of sales, I had like $5,500. I bought a $5,000 course. That was the wrong course. I emailed support, they never emailed me back. But you know what I learned from that? I learned a valuable skill, which was I was not detail oriented enough. Because guess what? I bought course 2 before course 1. And so it's funny because in that moment, I could have been so upset with myself and so annoyed. But I was like, I actually learned a really valuable lesson here, is that I need to slow down sometimes. Because the fact that I just spent $5,000, which was pretty much all my money, to buy something that wasn't even the fucking right thing. And I didn't even read the refund policy. Even that in itself was such a valuable lesson to me because I was thinking I was gonna get all these lessons from the course itself. But instead, life taught me a lesson, which is that I need to slow the fuck down and learn how to be a little more detail oriented. But all in all, what learning how to acquire skills, learning how to invest in myself really did for me was that it gave me the freedom to seek a partner who made my life better rather than a partner who I needed to function. I was in Newport Beach, California, and I was constantly working at a gym, being a personal trainer who's a girl, getting approached by guys who were like, oh my gosh, did you know he's a billionaire? He owns this company, he's got this yacht, it's crazy, he owns this nightclub. And every time I got approached by that, and I would have clients who were constantly telling me about going on dates with all these guys, and I was like, why are you going on a date with him? He seems like an asshole and like he's old and fat, confused. And they were like, well, like he has a lot of money, Layla, and like, I'm looking for somebody who can take care of me. And I was like, damn, I'm looking for that person too, but I just decided to become them. And a lot early on, a lot of women that I was surrounded with, you know, they said I was going about it the wrong way, that no guy was gonna wanna date a girl who knew how to make her own money. But here's the thing, I knew that I didn't wanna be in a relationship that I was in for any reason other than this person makes my life better. I want this person in my life. Being with this person is better than being alone. So the question is, do you want people in your life because they genuinely make your life better, or because you're too afraid of being alone? I wanted a partner who made my life better, who expanded my life, expanded my vision of myself, not a security blanket. And so if you're in your 20s and you're trying to figure out what you need to do, because I think a lot of women in their 20s, you have 2 things on your mind, which is you're trying to figure out career-wise, what route do you go? And also relationship-wise, what route do you go? The route that I took was hard, do not get me wrong. Like it was not traditional, but what it's allowed me to have later is a sense of self that I know that even if I wasn't with the person that I'm with who I love so much, I would be okay. And that is a sense of freedom that nobody can ever take away from me. And I have that sense of freedom because I know how to take care of myself mentally, physically, financially, emotionally. And so the longer that you procrastinate investing in yourself, procrastinate investing in your skills, the longer you also delay finding that right person for you. Because at the end of the day, do you want to be in a relationship because you need them or because they genuinely make your life better? Because you're sitting there alone and you're like, I actually wish I was with this person instead. And I don't know about you, but the thought of feeling like I have to be with somebody because I need to depend on them financially or I need them to fulfill some kind of void that I have has just never appealed to me. The fourth piece of advice I have for you for women in your 20s is that if a person or a thing makes you respect yourself less, walk away. I have women who come to me every day telling me about these men who cheat on them, that don't treat them right, that they can't find a guy. And let me tell you a story. I had somebody that I was dating and I was in a relationship for a couple years and then I had to leave for a period of time. And when I came back, I found out that that person had cheated on me. I have been in those situations. And what I've recognized is that how I show up to those situations and what I decide to do in those situations is all that I have control over. We can't control other people, but we can control whether we stay or leave a certain situation or person. And so I had a situation where, I had a relationship before Alex, and that person was a great person, but that person also cheated on me. Now, in that moment that I found that out, I had a decision to make, which was, how do I want to show up in this moment for me? Do I want to be the girl that slashes that guy's tires, that yells at him, that talks shit on Facebook, that posts on Instagram about how he's a piece of shit? Or do I want to just walk away? What do I want to have happen? And I decided in that moment, when I found out, and I was present with this person in the moment that I found out, that I didn't want to make the situation any more painful than it was. And instead, I just asked myself, what actions can I take right now that will make me proud tomorrow? And I remember what I said. I was like, okay, well, I guess we're broken up then. And the guy was like waiting for me to drop the pin or the pin to drop or me to freak out or something, because I'm sure that's what most people had done. And I was like, I don't hate you and I don't wish the worst for you. Maybe we could be friends in the future, but this just isn't for me. I just don't accept that. So that's it. And the crazy thing is that was such a pivotal moment for me, because it was in that moment that I showed myself what kind of person I wanted to be, which was in that moment, I took an action not dictated by my emotions, because of course I felt betrayed and angry and disgusted, right? I was livid. But I said to myself, how's yelling at this person gonna help me? How's yelling at this person gonna make me like myself more? And at the end of the day, he's gone. It's me that I'm left with. How I feel about myself at the end of the day is all that matters to me. That was it. I just remember the conversation. I walked away and then I didn't have anything to say after that. I didn't post on Facebook. I didn't freak out and call my friends. I just moved on. And the reason I did that was because I said, staying in this relationship and even just acting this way to what's happened with this relationship, if I act out in that way, I don't earn brownie points with me tomorrow. I don't earn future Layla's respect. Self-respect is the hardest to gain and the easiest to lose. And oftentimes, if we follow our emotions and we do what most people do, we end up losing our own respect, right, in the process. And most important is that self-respect is making decisions by yourself that nobody else will ever see. Nobody else will ever know you made. Nobody else until this moment in time knew how I handled that situation, but I knew. And I have to bring that memory of how I interact with that person into every other thing in the future. And I decided, I was like, I don't want to be a man hater. I don't even want to hate a man, even if he cheated on me. Because what does that hate do for me? What does it do for my life? How does it build up Layla? It doesn't. It just poisons me. And so I said, I just don't want that in my life. I don't want that emotion. I actually don't want to carry it. And so I see a lot of women in their 20s that have a friend that did something shitty, that have a boyfriend that did something shitty, that have a boss that did something shitty. How do you feel about yourself when you complain about it to other people? How do you feel about yourself when you yell at them? How do you feel about yourself when you post about them on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok? Like, how do you feel about yourself when you complain about a situation rather than just walking away? And I've just found for myself, in every situation I was in when I was younger, just picking myself up and walking away with no emotional outburst has built my character faster than any other thing I've done. What it's done is I've just drawn the line. This is how much I respect myself. I respect myself so much that you're not even worth yelling at. I respect myself so much that it's not even worth putting more energy into this situation. I respect myself so much that I care less that you know how mad I am and more that I know that I have my own back. I care more about how I feel when I go home than I do how you feel in this moment. And so you don't ever want to trade your self-respect for somebody else's. Lots of my friends said, why wouldn't you just like hand his ass to him? Like, you gotta fucking call him out. You gotta call this girl, you gotta blow him. And the funny thing is that they thought that I was a giant ninny for not doing something about it, for not blowing up, for not being angry. But I thought that I was a better person for it. And so at the end of the day, a lot of people didn't understand why I reacted the way I did, but I was the only one. When a situation or a person doesn't serve you anymore, why interact with it anymore? Why entertain it anymore? Why let it take up any more energy in your life? Like, this is it, I'm done. I'm walking away, new chapter. And the only way that I can do that and actually respect myself, set myself up better for the next chapter, is to not show up in a way that goes against the vision that I have of my life and the kind of woman I want to be. If you're worried about what your friends think and what your family thinks or what people think of you, just think about this. Most of us spend our whole life trying to earn the respect of like 2 to 3 people. But it's much easier to just change who those 2 to 3 people are. Just walk away from the situation. A lot of the times, those 2 to 3 people, they might be your family. It might be your partner. It might be your best friend of 12 years. I have been in all of those situations, and I have never regretted earning my respect over earning theirs. I've never regretted putting myself ahead of somebody else, because at the end of the day, you set those relationships up for failure if you prioritize their desires, their needs, their respect over yours. Because what does that do? It builds up resentment over time, and that just eats away at the relationship anyways. And so I've just always found that doing what's right for me, doing what builds respect for myself, at the end of the day, others can take it or leave it, but I've got to do what's right for me. The 5th piece of advice for women in their 20s is get comfortable being alone. Most people live their lives surrounded by people who exist simply to prevent them from being alone. Don't be most people. There's literally nothing lonelier than being surrounded or being in a room with people who make you feel more alone than you are when you're by yourself. Until you can get comfortable with being alone, you will never know if you choose a friend, a job, a lover, a partner out of loneliness or out of love. In my opinion, if you expand your capacity for loneliness, you actually expand your capacity for love. If you can love to be alone, then you can have people in your life who genuinely make your life better, who you want to have in your life, not people that you need to possess, people that you depend on. You can have people in your life without needing to possess them, become dependent on them, or need them to feel okay. Why? Because this allows absolute freedom. You know that if this other person leaves, you're still gonna be okay because you like being alone. And so you can't really freely choose the people in your life until you really love being by yourself. The first time I experienced this was when I took an internship. And that internship was in a resort in California. And they gave me this cabin about 3/4 of a mile from the resort, out in the woods. And there was no reception and there was no internet. And it was the first time that for 6 months, I was really alone, like more than I'd ever been in my entire life. And it was so terrifying at first because I was constantly surrounded by friends, by boyfriends, by my phone, by TV, by computer. And it was the first time in my life where I was just alone with my thoughts and myself. It was also the most freeing experience that I could have ever had, because what I had to learn in those times was how to be my own best friend, was how to comfort myself, was how to soothe myself, was how to entertain myself, was how to talk to myself. And I don't think that I acquired those skills until that point in my life. And those skills were what allowed me to so fearlessly pursue everything I wanted in life, because I was never fearful of people leaving, for what I actually wanted. And it's funny because what happened after that internship was I came back home and I lived in this house with like 6 people. And I said, I gotta move out. I can't be around them anymore because I realized I needed to improve my relationship with myself. And I felt like I'd made so much progress, but I felt like it wasn't done yet. And so I moved out of that house into an apartment on my own at the age of 21. So I was just a girl living by herself, probably not safe. But it was the best decision I could have made because all of my discretionary time went into improving my skills, improving my mindset, and improving my relationship with myself. Most people are afraid to be alone. Once you're alone for like a few weeks, you start to really love it because you start to know how to talk to yourself. You start to learn how to soothe yourself. You start to learn how to depend on yourself rather than some person sitting in the room. And oftentimes we're friends or we're in relationships with people out of convenience, not even because it's what we really want. And I realized that at that point in time. I was like, I am a better friend of myself than so many of these people I've surrounded myself with. And so I need to raise my standard of the people I surround myself with because now being alone is the standard. I like being alone. I like having time to myself. I like talking to myself. I like spending time with myself. And so if I don't like being with you more than I like being with myself, it's a no-go. And here's the thing, you should be your own best company. And if you're watching this and you're like, I'm so scared of being alone, you need to be alone more than anybody else watching this. Hope you guys liked this video, and if you did, go ahead and let me know in the comments.